I'm with Philip Sparke, the composer of In Memoriam to the Fallen, that gets its premiere performance tonight. Philip, lots of people have taken this wonderful poem by Lawrence Binyon and set it to music. Few have used the poem in its entirety. They've used just the one famous verse. But it must have been a completely different challenge, because it's a very emotive piece of work, isn't it?
Actually, it's the first time I've done anything with narration, and I found it quite an advantage, because it sort of set the framework of the piece out for me without me having to worry about where the piece was going. So I could paint musical pictures behind each verse as the poem proceeded.
You're famous for doing all sorts of pieces of music that relate to places, your Highland Suite and Gloucester Market and many things that you've written for band. Here you're relating to emotion rather than anything else, aren't you? Does that change your thinking?
No, I think that's all the way with music, actually, and even a piece that has a maybe descriptive title actually deals with emotion. I don't think music can have any meaning itself, but it does help to convey emotion.
It's kind of interesting that this was a piece that he wrote in 1914, and he was appalled by the loss of life in the British Expeditionary Force that had gone to France, but yet it's now become international, and it's taken as a piece of memoriam for forces the world over. It's kind of amazing that something that he wrote, I don't know, he didn't know the future of it, but it's become worldwide in its popularity.
Yes, you're right, of course. I think the one line that perhaps does this is "They shall grow not old," which is finding something at least a little bit positive in a situation that was completely negative. And it's looking at it from, at least they're not going to grow old. And I think that's an amazing thing, to be able to find something at least positive out of what was a dreadful situation.
But that, of course, is the verse that we all know, and is very sad and emotive, even though it's positive. But many of the other verses are really in support, talking about these tremendous young men who were going off to war, and really, we all know, in 1914, they had no idea what they were going off to.
Yes, right.
And yet he talks about them, they fell with their faces to the foe. He was full of admiration for the young people that he was writing about.
Yes, and at the time I think everyone thought the war would be over by Christmas 1914.
Don't they always?
Yes.
Nothing changes.
So he was looking at it from a perspective that we don't have, or at least we have now a fuller perspective of the horror of the First World War. So to be able to, for me, make such a deeply emotive and a meaningful assessment of the situation from a perspective that we now have, that he didn't have, I think is an amazing feat. And although I'm not a great fan of poetry, I don't read a lot, I think this is a poem that really touches me.
And I think you're not alone in that. What you've done for me as the narrator of this piece, you've introduced me to the poem in its entirety.
Right.
Like everybody else, I knew one verse, and I've said it throughout my military career in all sorts of memorial services around the world. For the first time, I'm having to speak the whole of the poem, and it is tremendously meaningful, as you say, and it's been a real experience for me.
Yes, I mean, what I try to do when I'm writing is to get an emotional flow, and this poem has the same emotional flow from what could be perceived as positive, negative, dreadful, talking about family, and I think the music, hopefully the music reflects that.
What's interesting, you said at the beginning of this that it was the words that gave the framework to the music.
Absolutely.
When you're performing it, it's the music that creates the framework for the words.
Right, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
So perhaps you've got it just right. And I know the band have really enjoyed playing it, and I know Nick's enjoyed conducting it, and I hope you enjoy our performance tonight. But it was interesting that when I started working with the band, how what they were playing framed the way that I said things. And in fact, I slowed down my delivery considerably to work better within the framework
Okay,
of the
right,
music.
right. I haven't had it done live with a narrator, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out in terms of timing, for one thing.
Well, I hope you still think it's interesting at the end of the performance.
I'm sure I will. Sure I will.
Philip, thanks as ever. It's a joy to talk to you.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks.